Yeah.
Good. I'm Mark Evans, by the way.
Hi, Chris.
Mark.
Chris, meet you.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Holly, I didn't get your picture.
It's
fine.
I didn't, yeah.
I pulled out the Ohio Township handbook, so I have a copy of all that. I live by the Ohio Village handbook or the Ohio Township handbook because
Which village is it? Zanesville.
I'm in South Zanesville
Okay.
and New
You have the
Concord.
microphones on?
Yeah, yeah.
Chesapeake.
Yeah, one of my good friends, PJ, listens. Yep.
I'm in the town. Besides here, 14 others,
Oh, wow.
two other townships, plus the rest of them are all villages. There's a lot more problems in villages than there are townships.
Did you have any fun at all? No?
Of the 15, 11 are already discouraged.
Oh, yeah, haven't heard of it.
That's the only way aware of it. And two of them are getting ready to go out.
I did all
Ready?
right.
Okay. I call to order the Etna Township Board of Trustees special meeting here on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 4:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Mr. Burkholder,
There,
Miss McKee. Here.
please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Over here.
No prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm glad we're finally getting to the budget. Again, I attempted to bring this up back in June 26th and July 11th. Have the emails right here, although Mr. Burkholder lied repeatedly saying that I didn't. I did. I had concerns back then. We shouldn't have waited till the last minute. And these things are important. So again, like I said, I've been telling the truth the entire time, and Mr. Burkholder has not.
Mr. Evans, did you get with the fiscal officer back then at all and work with her at all to put together any kind of your thoughts on the budget?
Okay, again, you're trying
Yes or
to
no? Yes
trying
or no?
to deflect, and I have made numerous requests of the fiscal officer which are not replied to. Even basic things as copies of the bank statement, that it's just not provided.
Well,
So
let's be honest.
yes, I have been asking for this to be dealt with for quite a while, and it's been ignored by all others.
I'll call the question, please.
Yes, please.
Yes? Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Burkholder,
Yes?
Miss McKee. Yes.
Yes, under new business, public comments. Anyone that has any public comments, 3 minutes, please come to the microphone and state your name, address, and address the board. Is there anyone that would like to speak at this time? It is a special meeting, so remarks will have to do with the budget. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll go to new business. At this time, I'll recognize the fiscal officer and Chris Kirby, who has been working with the township via contract to work on the budget and also our year end. But today we're going to be talking about the 2025 temporary budget. I'll turn it over to the fiscal officer at this time.
Well, I do know salaries are going up for the trustees and also the fiscal officer for this year. I have that number in my office, so, that will go up. We're talking about doing a temporary budget, so March of 2025. Any comments?
No, actually, yeah, it'll go through March of 2025, but we'll budget for about 50% to accommodate the pay raises, ensure 100% of the loans are covered if there are any loans. I know there was a couple. And then what we'll do is after we do the year end, we'll dig into each individual account code in order to ensure that everything was paid out of the right account code and properly budgeted. per the account codes, which are in your Ohio Township handbook.
Very good.
And we'll also create the resolution to pass the budget per the Ohio Township handbook.
Yes.
Example that they got in it.
And that'll be at our December 17th meeting?
The temporary budget will be at our December 17th meeting, yes.
Okay, very good.
So I do have a question. This was sent out, I think, Sunday as our temporary budget, but it zeroes all in the 2025.
Correct. I did that on purpose to ask if there was anything that might have to be more than the 50% besides the loans. Okay? Because I don't know that personally. I want to make sure that we budget to at least the 50% mark. So you might have some payments, such as you have a contract or something like that. You might have payments that all comes out the first year and goes through the whole year.
Right.
Those are the kind of things I need to know.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, because one of the things is the sheriff contract here shows a total of $300,000. Now, Ms. Coutinho, what's the cost of each deputy?
I don't know right off the top of my head.
It's about $112,000 per the contract with their salary. I think it's like $64,000. I think it's like $30 some an hour. But then healthcare, insurance, and all that stuff. We've got 4 deputies on the contract, so $300,000 is well below. We also have cruiser maintenance, fuel. That's not accounted in that. So I'm a little concerned that using these numbers that I think are way off. Are these numbers just what were appropriated for 2024?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
all right. So
So-
yes, I think the sheriff is off because I do know that the last check I wrote them was $163,000 for their benefits and their hourly wages.
Well, because I even seen like salary administrator, it's got 130,000, it's
Right.
155.
We talked about that. And also your guys' raises, you guys get raises January 1st also,
2%
1.75.
or 1.75. Yeah, I mean, it's known and that, and have you reviewed the 5-year budget plan?
Yes, I sent it to,
Okay. We couldn't use the projections that were provided by the prior fiscal officer for the 2025?
there was none for 2025. I could not find that form.
Because it was a 5-year project. I know it went out to 26 or 27. This has been my concern, that we don't have the data. We haven't looked into what's been actual, what's incurred, what's planned. It seems like we're just saying, we'll take the numbers, do 50%, and then we'll figure it out later. I mean, it's too hard to go back, but we really should have had all that detailed analysis now.
Yeah, but I think we're cleaning up some of this stuff from when Wally was in here, because there are a few funds that should not, like accounts that shouldn't be there, like other, it should be gone.
And I don't think, but that's one thing Ms. Varian did with, because he had other
He had
expenses,
and
and
then he has other communications.
he was doing the Corona funds off the books, I think through Excel, not in UAN, and there's been a lot of stuff, and I agree, but again, these are things that I've brought up since June that we need to address, and I think we're just kicking the can now another couple months.
Well, also, I'll speak to the issue. Your comments are duly noted. I don't think you need to continue to repeat them every other sentence, but I did attend the work session with Mr. Kirby and Ms. Coutinho when we first went through this, and that's the purpose of this work session, is to clean up some of those things, some of the knowledge that Trustee McKee has, some of the knowledge that you have. For example, I did talk to Lieutenant Carson just recently regarding the contract. They have had some new deputies come through now that are going to be able to go out on the road. A few are still in training. We've not had that 4th deputy, but part of this discussion will be, since the contract talks about a 4th, that do we want to have that 4th deputy at the first of the year? The board can discuss that. I presume we do, but I'm not going to presume anything. And so when we have $300,000, given the comments that have already been made at this meeting, then we definitely are going to increase that to maybe 400 or 500,000.
Correct.
So that's the purpose of this budget thing, is to say, for example, and I agree, since we're only covering a quarter of the year, but for example, we'll probably take half of, for example, the trustee salaries, we'll probably put in, if it's going to be 80,000, we'll probably put in 40,000 as an example now, which will cover the first quarter. And then we can adjust those during that 3-month period so that we can adopt our final budget for 2025 prior to March 31st. Is that a correct summary statement? Okay, very good.
Now, with that said, I will take all inputs, because there might be something that is going to come up in April that I don't know about. Of course, I want to filter through Jackie the best we can. But, anybody wants to call me, I gave you my card. Just use my cell phone.
So do we want to go through this line by line, or how do we want to proceed, or?
Before we do that, can I ask a general question?
Sure.
Certificate of estimated resources,
Yes.
what revenue are we expecting next year?
That is actually, I already put that on this chart. If you go to the last page of each fund, I sort of projected what you're going to get for the whole year. Like in the general fund, about $2,078,000, and that's based on history of this year, 2024, where some of those funds are a little less than what was expected. Let's see if I got the right.
All right, because funds like the Jed Z are down significantly over
I've
the
got
past.
I've got a copy of the revenue status report, is what I use.
I mean, do we have one where it just shows all revenue?
You should. I sent one out yesterday after I did the bank statement.
Yeah, I got it.
I can print one out too.
I mean, and again, I would say that we've got the new diligent software, that these things should be included in that, so it's not only available to all board members, but to the public. So it's easy to just attach, and then, so you don't have to go back looking for this email that it was sent Sunday, it was sent Monday, it was sent, I think we really need to start utilizing that. And you said you sent it yesterday?
Yeah, I can print you another one.
You want to print them all?
Yeah.
That's
I'll
fine.
print
I got
out.
mine up on the computer, but
And you got an older one.
Yeah, well, this is from 11/19. Of course, general property tax, you've already received all of it. And this year, it was short $125,000.
I wish.
$125,000 that was projected in the final budget last year. So I'm projecting you're only going to get $436,000 this year, compared to this year, it was projected at $560,000. And again, this is based on historic revenue.
Now, Jackie, you said you sent the estimated resources for next year. I see 2 emails. I see for
No.
November.
The revenue summary for,
Estimated resources you won't have until after the first year.
No, but we should be, I mean, if we're doing the budget, we should kind of
I
expect to
sent you
know
all
what
the
we're
three
getting in
range.
for Jeds, Jed Zs, all that, as we've done previously. We should have an estimate for those funds. What you're talking about, you sent was the year-to-date for November, but what I'm saying, like Amazon, we used to get 1.2 million. The following year was 1.119, and I think this year we're barely over 8 expected. So those are the kind of declining revenues that, are we expected 7 next year?
Which JED number is that?
That's Jed Z2.
Okay, so like in JED 2, this year you received.
Not Jed, there's different, we have Jed and we have Jed Z.
Right.
We have,
Right.
you said Jed.
Okay, right. Okay, so you got JED, you got JED Z. JED Z, you received $236,794 this year. And it was
Which
projected
Jed
to be
Z,
900,000.
which Jed Z?
Jed Z2.
What do you have?
There was projected 900,000, you received $236,794,
No, we received more than that.
as of this report.
We have 3 quarters and we get the distribution of the 4th quarter of 2023, which we don't get until
Till 2024.
2024, correct?
Right, it's a quarter behind,
It's a
but
quarter behind. but-
my concern is, again, like I said, that's the one that has been fallen, but if you're, and I'm not addressing this to you, you've just been brought in to figure this stuff out. But if going through this process, there's that kind of misunderstanding, or, how are we moving forward with the proper figures if the actual revenue, I know the actual revenues to date were at least over 600,000 or about 600,000, and if you're saying 279, that's a big disconnect.
Yeah, where did you get that figure?
I'm looking at the revenue stat report. Now, that says 11/19, so if you got anything after 11/19, it wouldn't be on.
But that's where the actual JED and JED Z boards are supposed to provide projections of the anticipated revenue for next year. Ms. McKee, have they?
She gets them to the fiscal officer. That's
Have
where
they
go. You
been
keep going after the
provided?
board, but this is the thing. Their job is to provide it to the fiscal, like she provided it to Julie. There's
So
nothing changed.
you're on the boards, have they
Well,
provided it
Again,
to
I
us?
understand that, but I'm just
I'm just
explaining
asking
to
if they
you, and I'm
provided.
explaining that to you, Mr.
One person at a time, please.
that it is provided to the fiscal officer.
So it hasn't been provided this year?
It should have,
Let me clarify.
because that is
because
the requirement that she would be giving us.
I attended that meeting, so the question is for both the fiscal officer and
But here,
Mr. Kirby. Do
Judge,
you
you
have
said-
all 3 quarters of revenue from all the JEDs and JEDSs?
No,
Okay,
we don't have the 3rd quarter. It's not in here yet. But JED 2, they overpaid us, and we had to pay them back this
Correct.
year. So they took out $200,000. So we
Right.
would have got $200,000, but they overpaid for last year, so we had to pay back
Yes.
$200,000.
No, but what I'm talking about is each board is required to send what they anticipate the following years.
No, they haven't given me,
well, first of all, do you have the 3rd quarter because we've had that meeting? We've
Because
had
I
the meeting,
have the 3rd quarter information right here. I just spoke to a resident for an hour prior about this, and that's again,
and what-
okay, I
my
have
concern
not
that we don't have the
received.
information.
I understand, Mr. Evans, but what figure do you have from the 3rd quarter that we have?
Oh, our discussion was focused on the JED Z1, so that's what I have, but the JED Zs do have reports. Now prior, it's included in the meeting packets up until the start of 2024. Those were provided to me, that stopped. But this again, it's about the proper information, and I've dealt with budgets, long time, focused on accounting and that. It's about proper information and numbers, and again, if we don't have those projections, they might be 50%, and that revenue is gonna be way down.
Mr. Evans, you are correct, and that's why we're having this budget meeting, to bring all of this together for this 2025 budgets and budgets going forward. So, Mr. Kirby, and for the fiscal officer, do you have, thank you. Yeah, these are the amended budgets. Thank you, Thea. Yeah, we have
Is that
JEDS.
the amended budget for the JED Z 1 and 2?
Well, these are for the 2024, because what they do, JEDZ 1 and 2, and Paul Rennick is the accountant to the
He
JEDZs.
provides that in those meetings.
And he provided that, and he provided this in our most recent meeting in November.
Yes.
What the amended budget is for 2024. So when they see that the revenues are coming in lower than expected, they go ahead and revise both the expenses and the revenues.
Yes.
And these are the documents that we need to have for these kinds of budget sessions.
I would disagree a little bit, because they're actually required to provide estimated for 2025. So if there's been declining revenue over 22, 23, 24, they're gonna reflect that.
That
in
is correct.
24, but they're supposed to provide those documents, and they've already had their last meeting, and apparently that hasn't been provided. And that's a concern.
It should be a concern. It should be a concern for all of us, and that's why we need to make a list from this meeting of the deficiencies that we have so that we can adjust this and get this data to both the fiscal officer and Mr. Kirby. Because and Mr. Evans is correct, it's been declining, particularly on JEDS 2. Now we hope in the future, depending on employment, that those JEDs, but they're not producing much now. But the temporary budget has got to have those numbers. And that's where there needs to be communication, particularly between Mark Motter and the fiscal officer, that those documents get distributed to all three trustees.
Right.
All three trustees and the fiscal officer.
And the one thing I would point out, and I think we need to know the revenue, one page of what's all coming in and that expected for 2025.
Yes.
Just for budgeting purposes, but also our salary, because each of the elected officers' salary is tied to that. If it's over 10 million, it's at the capped amount. If it's under, it's not. So we have a duty to not overpay ourselves. And if those revenues are declining, that puts us under the 10 million, then our salary's got to decrease starting January 1st.
And so I would ask that these notes, that the minutes from this budget meeting be put together as quickly as possible, because this is the list of items that we need to get to the fiscal officer and Mr. Kirby, including capital improvements that we see coming this year. But yes, the estimated revenues and expenses are going to be critical. So for the purpose of this, we can adjust, for example, on the police contract. If we think that's going to be $500,000, then we probably ought to put a number in of $250,000, which would be 50%. So to your point, Mr. Evans, if there are expenses, and the same on the revenue, declines, then we need to, in a rough sense, put those in now. And these are guesstimates of what they will or won't be. For example, on the revenues, if we think that's going to be down to $700,000, then that revenue ought to be only estimated at 50% of that. And then as we would have the fourth quarter before March 31st, so then we would have a better idea too. I mean, consumer spending's up. How that's going to affect Amazon too, I'm not quite sure. I think normally we see an increase from previous quarters in the fourth quarter on JEDSI too. But some of that's based on the economy. As you noted, Mr. Evans, some of that may be a reduction in the amount of employment out there too, whether it's automation or other factors in that. So,
Well,
go ahead.
again, my concern is you indicated you'd already had a meeting regarding this. Some of these basic things should have been addressed at that time, and we're kind of in a time crunch here, but I really think the purpose of this budget is, number one, for this year, but we should be looking into the future, 5-year budget, because we can't just make decisions now, because if the economy does change, or if it is slowing down, and this is long-term where it's going to be declining revenues, we should be preparing for that now. Again, I've been sounding this alarm for a while. We need to address this stuff. Even, like I said, simple things like the administrator's salary, that should have been caught on that first meeting.
Mr. Evans, you've made this perfectly clear, but to make this meeting productive, we are well aware of the things that are not reflected in this. But to make this meeting productive, we need to make those corrections. We need to get to the fiscal officer and all three trustees and to Mr. Kirby the missing pieces of information he doesn't have. So when we get to, and taking into consideration what you're saying, and looking toward the future where we can predict for 26 and 27 and 28. And part of that has to do with the amount of grants that we have coming in. And so if anyone wants to, if you want to cite the list of debt that we have, I don't know, Mr. Kirby, do you have all our outstanding loans that we have currently?
Just the two, besides Refugee Road, which we're not sure.
Well, then that's why we need to obtain the Refugee Road. And that has been noted in the past, to your point, Mr. Evans. The SID loan, right?
And technically, we do have
So,
many other loans. We've got a loan for Schuster Way. We've got a loan for Tollgate. The Schuster Way is 2.5 million. But we're not making direct payments, but I hope we're.
Yes, who's making
It's
that?
on,
Is
that is required to be paid through the TIFs, the JEDs, or, and various, one of them was the grant reimbursement, that $1 million, which we got that, reduced there, but I'm hoping we're tracking that because that is an obligation through these, but direct payments, you said Taylor Road, I know we found out about that last year,
that's correct, we have Taylor
that's the one
and
through Reynoldsburg.
Refugee
and 310.
310.
and 310,
So the ones I'm making payments on right now is 310 and Taylor.
Okay.
right.
The
Refugee Road is
Road
kind of new.
one is the one we need to find out when we owe
Yeah.
and when it's due.
Now, Mr. Evans, were you involved on the refugee as far as with the TID and what I believe you attended some of those, was it TPA and Ashley? Of course, Ashley's not there now, but there is a payment schedule and amortization, correct, on the refugee road, which is not gonna, I don't believe it's gonna become due in '26, the first payment. But do you have that documentation?
It's still, no, I was removed before that was finalized and didn't get any of the information. I've got some of the draft stuff, but we should have that in-house. But again, Ms. McKee was part of that. She should be able to provide those
Well,
documents.
Mr. Evans, we are all going to work as a team here to find that information in-house so that we can, the other thing is there's also debt payments being made out of the JEDSIs as well, but again, that is not coming directly out of our distribution. But that is a liability as far as the JEDSIs.
Everybody else's portion is being deducted from their distribution.
Right.
Ours, and I've questioned this before, because we actually, I think, missed a payment because it wasn't known. But that, I think we should just have the JED board reduce it and make it directly, I believe it was probably done to boost the revenue coming in. Because the schools, the county, all have it just subtracted from any distribution as shown on the reports, except Etna. And I'd be for that to simplify the process. It'd be one less check to mail out quarterly.
Well, are we making a direct payment? The question is, are we making it, for which one is this for?
That's for JEDZ 2 for the 310 project.
Yep.
Yeah, we make those payments to Huntington.
I understand, but his point is that the other entities that contribute to that debt service, that is being deducted from their distribution as opposed to us paying it and not having it deducted from our distribution, which would make it, he is correct, Mr. Evans is correct, that would make it a lot simpler. These are the cleanup things that I agree, we need to have a list and then begin pursue getting those rectified. But for the record, I think we need to get a hold of the Transportation Improvement District here for Licking County, Bill Lozier, and ask him regarding the TID on the Refugee Road, and that's through the State Infrastructure Bank. What is that payment schedule? Is it for 20 years? Do you recall, Mr. Evans?
Ms. McKee, you were on Ms. McKee, you took control. Can you expound on that?
The question, Mr. Evans, is directed to you. Do you have that information? I know you worked on it. I'm just asking you to verify. Am I correct that it's a 20-year loan loan instead of a 10-year? I don't know off the top of my head.
Is that the 310?
No, that's the Refugee Road.
That's the new Refugee Road, the widening on Refugee Road and the roundabouts. Now, since we're talking, and I can defer to you, Ms. McKee, I think we ought to be looking at getting, well, actually you brought it up, getting reimbursement from the JEDSI 2.
Right.
And possibly some from JEDSI 1. JEDSI 2 has a lot more for the recent work that's being done, or has been done, I should say, on Refugee Road.
Well, because that road opened up, we are technically using that road to get onto Refugee Road, so it's a part of that JED.
Right.
So what I would like to see, and I talk to Alberts and Alberts, and they're gonna try to put some things together to see if it can be done. I don't see why it couldn't, where they would just reimburse us on a regular basis for the loan payment that we would be making on that same day.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's worth pursuing. And bring it up in this context because this is information that has to be hopefully baked into the final budget for 2025.
And the only thing I'd like to say about that is I think we're using the Jet Z2, which is south of 40, which is Amazon there, for Refugee Road is kind of abusing the BIA account there. It's supposed to be benefiting the district in that the 310 project, you could say, okay, it brings the trucks in, but the Amazon trucks should not be going up to Refugee Road. They're not doing a tour of the township. They're going to 310 and that. So I'm concerned that we're getting outside. We're asking the boards, and they can approve what they want, but outside the boundaries of what's permissible.
It was done for Heritage.
Exactly.
And I disagreed with that too.
Okay, that's
because-
fine, but that's the board, and if that's their decision, but that's beyond the scope of this, we can.
Loan agreements attachment, I'll send them to you. They were sent from Brianna back on February 23, 2023, but I'll forward them to you so you can print them.
I just found the loan agreement or something.
Okay.
And it says that the LCTID Refugee Road widening project, the Schedule 1, shows we're paying a 3% interest rate, and we have semi-annual payments beginning on 8/16/25 of $260,000.
Of how much?
$260,000 right here.
Yeah, that sounds
And it
right.
goes till 2/16/2043.
Yes, that's it.
2043.
Yeah, so it is a 20-year thing. Okay, yeah. And
And
what they
I'll
do on the SIB loans, they defer it for those first 18 months or 2
Yes.
years, and that's why it doesn't start till August of 25, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, very good.
Let's defer a year.
I will print this if you want. I just forwarded it to you, so whenever you want to print it, so you'll have it. So
He likes
it's the
the
whole
hard
loan
copy.
agreement.
Yeah, I need, I'll need, yep, so I need right here, same
Okay.
position.
All right.
So, got one right here. See, task for this one. This is the county. Technician's thing.
Let me know when we can move on.
Go ahead.
Well, I have a question with these numbers in here. If we're going through the 2024 proposed budget, we had significant increases in the medical insurance. And that needs to be accounted for.
Correct.
Yep.
And actually, it'll be more.
For
Because you added, since you did it in May, we've added 3 new people?
Is this, the 1,110,221, is that what we're looking at for medical insurance?
Well, it's broken out into various ones because road crew's different, and one of the things that I do think we need to get better on is segregating work on parks, on cemeteries and roads, because I know road crew, you can't use the road taxes funds to pay for the park upkeep and that's one of the things that has not, I don't think, been done. I think the full expenditure isn't coming out of just those taxes, so I think we're good using general funds on that, but just for accounting purposes and seeing how much is actually directed towards parks and the cemetery. We should, on the time cards, try to segregate that somehow of, hey, we've worked on the roads 5 hours today, cemetery 2 hours, this guy's been 8 hours there, of trying to track that.
Do you have time cards or
They have-
electronic or?
We just have time sheets that are filled in, that just has total hours. That's it.
Okay, so it doesn't break it down.
Doesn't segregate out according to which fund you're,
It doesn't, and we previously had a road crew member that was working in the zoning office and, 2 days, 3 days, and that was, it's just, I think we need to, for our, number one, legally, making sure we're not expending road tax revenue on park stuff, especially when we're gonna be increasing the park maintenance with the new park and that, but just for our purposes of staffing and, okay, on parks, we're, spending this many man hours on there and just for managerial.
well, I'm familiar with that because I've worked in city government where obviously that is broken out so that it's properly allocated, but it's easier said than done. So we have to have a mechanism whereby our staff can actually do that in a very efficient way and then it can be properly. But Mr. Kirby, with your experience, as far as UAN, are other communities making that regarding the hours worked? Or are they breaking it out into those different
I do.
funds?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to take it out of the right fund.
Right.
You don't want, like, we got sewer and water,
Right.
streets, parks, you want to take it out of the right order. And sometimes you can look at it as a percentage instead of an actual hour.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, and that's, in your case, that might be the better way of doing it.
That would be the most efficient and simplest rather than getting from the recording standpoint to estimate. And I think that's what we did at the city. We estimated what percentage had to go to the water and sewer fund because we had staff down there, maybe not full time, and then when they went to work in the parks.
I don't think, we're not asking like for legal billing to the 10th of an hour and stuff like that, but I think it'd be easy. There's tons of systems out there. There's tons of, where you can, it'd be easy if the guy's mowing for 4 hours at the cemetery and then he's fixing the culvert for the roads for the other 4, just to break it on that.
Well,
And it doesn't have to be clocked in, clocked out. You're estimating, but it's better than just.
we can have that discussion later, but yes, you can do it one way or the other.
I
But
would
estimates.
suggest it. I mean, that's because when you get through your audits, they're gonna want to know that.
Great. So, on this, the subtotal of the benefits of 302,000, so I guess as we're going through this, what are we thinking? What kind of increase? What do we need to put on the temporary 2025 budget? Are we looking at 400,000 we're gonna spend this coming year?
Well, with your medical insurance possibly going up 27 to 30%, yeah. That's the
And workers'
average
comp is
increase
going
right now.
up.
Well, and now what you need to factor is, because we've got the high deductible with the HRA of what the expected HRA usage is for, that was the whole point of the HRA, to kind of cut back on the premiums, but that's the kind of stuff that I think, we need to be provided by the fiscal officer of, okay, these expenses are going up, so the budget should be changed to this.
Well, you've been
This is
working on
for-
the insurance, so what is the feedback you've got?
I've
from our
provided all
contacts?
this information, and again, I've been trying to get this information.
Mr. Evans,
out-
we
No,
know this. We
I've
know
been
this.
trying to get
Do you-
the monthly reports, and they've finally been provided.
Mr. Evans, we
But
know
again,
this. We
don't
know
put
you-
it on my shoulders.
I'm just
when
asking you,
blocked
do
everything.
you have the information?
I have access to that information, just like the annexation report that you didn't have, just like, I have the information. I have the refugee
Will you-
road information, but the point is,
Will you submit it to
things are
Mr.
being
Kirby?
done and
Will you
decisions
submit it?
made without that information by this board, by board members like Ms. McKee that are on these boards.
You know, you cannot,
Love saying my
if
name.
you want this to be a
Rent-free in this
productive
head.
meeting.
No, but we
you
need to
cooperate.
change.
Facebook
We
and
need
here.
to change.
Okay, well, I guess we'll continue without
Yes,
Mr. Evans
please
if
do.
he's not gonna be
Yeah.
willing to participate and try to resolve the concerns you have. I don't think anyone disagrees that things need to be done better, but that's gonna take a collaborative and a cooperative effort.
I agree, Mr.
I
Burkholder.
say this till I'm blue in the face, but attacking other members, elected officials, isn't gonna solve the problem.
Mr. Burkholder, I sent you that annexation
He's
agreement no
campaigning,
less
you
than
guys.
4 times.
That's
He's
irrelevant.
campaigning.
No, it's not. It's the
Okay.
same with all this
Excuse
information.
me, can we go back to this?
Yes,
This-
exactly.
We have an hour and 20 minutes left.
Okay, so let's,
We need to get a temporary budget by next Tuesday.
lead us and tell us what numbers, we'll have to guesstimate on some of
We're gonna
this if we don't
guesstimate on
have it.
most of this stuff.
Right.
That's
So,
because that's what the-
Let's go line by line, Mr. Kirby, you
Right.
have the
Wrong
floor.
numbers, please, thank you.
This is my feelings,
Right.
okay? We just go with a straight 50% on everything except for the loans. And right now, you've just got one loan coming out until the second half of the season, so we could actually go 50%.
Okay,
50% on the loan, well, you get 2 payments for the year.
No, there's one that has two, and
2
then,
payments, okay, quarterly payments,
then another one that has quarterly.
okay. So you can give me I just need amortization sheets on that, and I can build that.
right, easily. And then,
But I will not just go with a straight 50%, I will go with an even dollar amount.
right,
Because
Right.
that's just easier to track.
Yeah.
for the temp,
So
right.
instead of $33,243, he's gonna do 34,000.
Yeah.
For like salaries trustee,
Okay.
you know, just round it to the nearest
Yeah, that's right, that makes
And-
sense.
zero and,
That way we can meet periodically and we can build each fund
As
where it
we
needs
go.
to be.
Yeah.
All right? And if you got data, please bring it. I mean, just, because I don't do things, I can't look at the computer and put this on paper and then give you the information because I'm not familiar with the information. And that's why I depend on your guys' input.
Right.
You guys are the professionals, so I am just governmental accounting is, pardon the expression, is ass backwards of all other accounting.
Yeah,
Right?
get it.
Your certificate of estimated resources comes from your budgets, revenue and appropriations.
Yep.
Right. And that's where you gotta go. Your amended certificate, of course, has to go to the county auditor. They send you a copy back. You gotta make sure UAN matches what that amended certificate states. That's the goal. The other goal is to ensure that you make the auditors as happy as possible so they're in and out within a week. My audits last 3 days.
Good.
There should be no reason you guys can't be that way in a couple of years. All right.
Our parks, because we have been awarded grants, some of those are reimbursable, and so,
And we talked about that, and you can leave them in the general fund, but create a cost center to track what you have coming in and going out for the parks for those grants. That way you can keep them separate from all your other money.
right.
Okay? Or you can create, with authorization from the state auditor's office, you can create a new fund. It's up to you guys how you want to work at it.
What do you recommend?
I recommend staying in the general budget, or general fund, and the reason, with the cost center codes specifically stating part, because the less funds you got, the better off you are. I'm working with multiple villages and townships that's got 30 and 40 fund codes, and they have no idea what those funds are for.
Yeah.
Right.
So you gotta keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll be able to show then what's coming in because we're putting together a capital stack of maybe 4 or 5 different sources of grant money and general fund money, but we can track that and then show the expense,
Right.
where that's being paid so that for
And your
reimbursable.
revenue too.
Right.
If whatever you
will
have
you
coming in.
will you have that in 2025, or are we getting that in 25, or are we getting that in 26?
Both, 25 and 26.
So
Yeah,
we
and
need
you
to
can
add
keep
that
it.
in our budget.
Yeah, you can just keep the cost center, and it could be just very simplistic, okay, like 9999. You know, this is my part. When I get that grant in, you receive it with that cost center. And then you also, any expenditures, you pay for it with that cost center too. That way you're not spending your grant money
Right.
on widgets.
Yes,
You know.
yeah.
But it's the same thing with construction, accounting and that, just assigning it a job, you know what the expenses, know what the revenue is for the job. I mean, I think one of the things is that, like grants, that are those in this budget, the projected, the park grant and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know what those are. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, and she'll get.
Those are things that I'm a little, and I'm sure you sensed it, frustrated with, that should have been provided to the fiscal officer and hasn't, and that's where we're at the point where we're trying to discuss it, that it should have already been provided and discussed. Now we're a week away from, okay, we gotta have a budget, and now we're running around trying to figure it out. So that's my frustration.
Okay, so let's take this and take that as a learning curve and move forward and make sure it doesn't happen again next year.
That's exactly right. And because we have so much on our plate, I think the fiscal officer is vaguely familiar with some of the things we've had, but she wasn't at the NCA. We are getting a letter from the NCA to, I guess, document the fact that they have voted and agreed to give us $125,000 on a reimbursable basis. So since we haven't really expended any of that yet, that would be in the 2025 budget.
And that's a grant, right?
Well, they have funds.
No, I'm saying.
Yes, it's going to
But
be
it's a
a
grant,
non-paid, yeah, it's a
reimbursable
grant, yeah, it's a reimbursable grant. We're going to be applying for one from the Lincoln County Park District. We have $150,000 from the state capital budget, and that will cover the period of the state capital budget, which is 2025 and 2026. And so we've also talked about, although obviously we're trying to put together about $600,000. So we're talking about some general fund money, if we look at the Lincoln County Park District, and any other sources we can find.
Now, are you going to put the money toward this park?
This park here, yes.
And a newer park?
No, this park here, and that's something I think from a cost perspective, we need to separate it out from, this is High Point Park, and the other park, I don't know that it has a name yet, but that's the 100 and some acres that we have. And we have expended funds for that to do some conceptual planning, which is in process. So I take it you would advise to keep those two parks separate from a
That's
cost
my
perspective.
opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Because that way if you get a grant specifically for that park,
Right.
you're set.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Do we have in this budget the reimbursements from the judges? I see the legal and accounting expenses in there, but we get reimbursed that. That's revenue, and that should be included, but I don't see it.
If it's in your revenue, I call it revenue status report. And that could be under a few different things, fees, I'm not quite sure that would be under.
Well, I think whatever reports or whatever spreadsheets we're given, they need to be detailed, because if it's lumped in, we don't know if that's accounted for or what that is for. But I do not see in here where there's that reimbursement, because again, that is revenue.
Yeah, that might be some of the cleanup work. For example, in the new community authority, we pay the legal fees and then we get reimbursed back. But I don't know that we've ever recorded in and out on that we expended it and then revenues happened.
We do, as I worked with our former fiscal officer, Ms. Varian, on the budget since I've been in office, that we've gone through in detail of what's expected out, what's expected in, and the in is part of revenue, even if you're putting it right back out. Any of the grants, again, the work that she's done with the five-year budget and that.
Do you
we,
have that?
We laid that all out, yeah. Mrs. Key's got it, everybody's got it. And you should have it too, it's on the laptop and.
Okay, I have a whole drive that is locked. They had locked it. X-Tech locked my drives. One drive. It is
Okay, I
locked.
thought that was dealt with a couple months ago.
Well, it hasn't been.
It hasn't, and they keep
Would
saying,
you
you don't
like
need
it-
that, you don't need that.
If, like I
There-
said, I've been removed as contact there, but I
I'll
can
call.
easily take care of that. That's a simple permission change.
Who is the contact?
What's it, Kyle? And then you have the general, but, as I said, he's been very responsive.
Who's the
All my
administrator?
stuff is missing.
Who's the administrator with X-Tech, Mr. Evans?
The administrator?
Yeah,
Are you
of that
talking
account.
about
Who has
Fiscal
access?
officer?
No, who's the administrator here at the township? Are you still the administrative person?
Susan Bledsoe, our administrator, is the
Has-
administrator
okay, good.
for the online. Again, I know you don't want me to have any access to anything, but I've been the
No.
only one able to.
That's not the
Address
question,
the
that's not the
issues.
question. Don't start getting accusatory
No, no, no.
and defensive. That's
But-
not the
but-
question.
But what I'm saying
We're trying to
is,
get this
these
resolved
things-
so she can get this unlocked, so we can get to the documents in the purview of the budget discussion.
And this has been months. Why hasn't it been addressed, Mr. Burkholder?
I don't know, it's.
You're the contact for the vendors.
No, I'm not.
You removed that from me.
No, I am not the contact. The
You removed
administrator,
that.
the administrator
Okay, let's
is the
go back to the
contact.
budget, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Done.
You just continue to argue
Stop.
about everything.
Because it's repetitive.
Yes, you're all repetitive. Let's get this done.
So we're gonna go with the 50%.
Yes.
On
But
everything.
The question is 50% of what?
On everything.
Of
except the
everything
loans.
for 2024.
With the exception of some of the things that
Yes.
Mr. Kirby's noted.
Yes. And then we will work toward our permanent budget.
No.
No?
I would suggest that in the column that is the temporary 2025 requirement, there's the full amount, and then we just reduce it to 50%. So we can see, because once you start just manually changing the numbers, you can have errors, you can, would it be better for review, just have it all?
Actually, what I do is I put the formula in there. And
Okay.
it says 50%, but what it does is it takes away anything after the point. I'm not
Correct.
going to
You
pin.
can have that,
Okay, so that'll be in the formula.
Okay.
That'll-
I'm not
okay.
touching,
Let's do
I'm
that.
not touching that.
I just want to make sure it's not manual, then you get
We ain't got that
errors
much
and,
time.
okay.
No.
Thank you.
So as a product of this meeting, then, we also want to get you the list of anticipated additional expenses. For example, we're gonna have to spend more at the garage, for example, on capital improvements. We got a leaky roof over there, there's some other things that need to be.
Which brings me to my question about
Okay.
capital improvements. There was absolutely nothing on your miscellaneous capital projects that was appropriated last year.
We had quite a bit that was earmarked for building improvements, town hall, garage, even things like the road network. I think we were anticipating 968,000 or something like that. I mean, we're at like a little over 6 or 7. But no, that we included that. Whether I believe Ms. Varian placed that into. There were line items for
Was there
this.
a line-
There's line items, but there's nothing there. There was nothing ever appropriated. I mean, I can only go by reports.
No,
you know,
you're right.
that What's in UAN. So if you want that garage and all that kind of stuff, this is perfect time to.
Yeah.
Get the
plan
capital,
that.
we can get you that list.
So,
Whether it be supplies or contract, because you gotta separate them. Okay, because that's two
Right.
different types of line items.
Was there contracted services under roads? That's probably where it came out of.
You're talking about the roads and bridges?
Yeah, because that's what
Yeah,
the pay-
there were some, yeah. Mhm.
9-some thousand.
Well, he's got it as of
1119.
11/19.
But yeah, your roads and bridges, which you're in good shape with, you got almost $500,000 in there
that's good.
currently. But yeah, there was, for appropriations last year, you had, let me see, page 5, you had final appropriations of $1.765 million.
Mhm.
Now, there was only 538,000 spent so far.
And portion of that was new vehicles.
Probably
Portion of that
30,000.
was, I mean, Mr. Burkholder, you were with Ms. Varian and I when we were going through these budget things this past year.
Yeah, there was 30,000 toward vehicles and 26,000 was spent.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, I can only go by what the reports tell me.
So what about the 700,000 that we just wrote a check for? Has that been entered?
700,000 for which,
We did paving, we did road.
That won't be until December.
That's where always at.
So we don't have that number in there, but that would,
So where's that gonna come from?
That's the roads, that's the
That's
paving.
the
yeah.
pavement of the
But
road.
isn't that just a,
This one, right here. Some building.
630,000.
No, I just wrote the check.
so when it comes to capital improvements, should each fund have do you want one general capital improvement? Each, like road should have its own separate capital.
capital outlay?
Yeah,
That's what
cap
they call it.
outline, right,
Yeah.
right.
And you can make that as regular capital outlay, you can make it as for equipment, you can, buildings, we can do it however you want to, we can make it whatever you want to call it.
Right,
Or you can just condense it all into one, which is
Right.
capital outlay.
So on the capital outlay, where we have building improvement sites, we'll just do that as separate. Okay, and we can list, for instance, any kind of construction or improvement that we may want to do, like add on, or just like the garage you mentioned.
Yeah, or your new,
Or just
like your new
garage.
furnace that you
Or
have.
new
yeah.
furnace, okay. All right.
well, from a budget standpoint, I know we're gonna have to, whatever it is for the garage, we're gonna have capital improvements on that,
So you
so.
want to expand it, or you just going
It needs a new roof on the older building.
They also need additional storage. A lot of our equipment's being stored outside, covered storage, increase the life of the equipment.
you're looking at a lean-to type, or carport type?
Something just to keep it out of the weather is what I've been discussing with the road crew. And
Now, Mr. Evans, do you have, I talked to the road superintendent, you have the list of all the a master file, is that correct, of all the improvements to the roads?
the master, I've got some old printed stuff that
Well,
I've got
that's-
to return there, but as far as the actual spreadsheets tracking the stuff, it has not been done for a while. There's some missing before I came on board that we need to update and kind of get control of that. But yeah, I've got that because that's what I've used to recommend the road improvements that we've done.
That's why, if we could get that back to the hall so we could do a backup copy, it's not in digital format, correct?
It is not, and it was, when you say back to the hall, it was at the road crew in the garage.
They have it now?
No, it was. That's
Okay.
where I was planning on returning it, but
Okay. If we can get that, because I've talked to the administrator and we want to get that so we've got a backup so nothing happens to the hard copy, since that historical data is important.
The other thing, of course, and I think everybody agrees, you need a capital improvement project plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have one.
Well, we talked about that, Mr. Evans. Do we have, I know you, I'm not saying it's been completed, but we had talked about putting that together, correct?
With priorities, like how many years you go out, and I always make an example, I know you don't have a fire department, but let's say you turn out here for a fire department, it's only good for 10 years, but you don't want to replace all 10 of them, or let's say 20
Right.
turn out here.
one thing we haven't had is any kind of, I guess, future planning for road work. I was focusing on the road work in that. Now we've got our planned maintenance of different roads, but yeah, that's got to be constructive of what we're going to be dealing with. You know, are we going to be micro surfacing, mill and fill, and that kind of stuff, and that's got to be worked out well in the future so we can budget properly. But as far as total capital improvement, I've brought up many things. Like I said, we've been talking for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, of the need for replacement plow trucks. And the timeline for ordering those is extended. So I think we're gonna get in a bind if one breaks down and we have heavy snows. Those things gotta be in the mix, and they're expensive. We've had estimates on those previously. I don't think those are relevant anymore. I think probably gotta get new estimates, but I know being on the fire board, equipment that used to be 800,000 is now 1.3 million. So it's, those are the things that, again, a lot of the stuff, I don't know what's been done or going on, but
But again, that's what we need for, to get away from the temporary for just a second, that's what
Right.
we need for the permanent budget. So you can build it, so you guys have a
a plan that you feel is comfortable.
Right.
Correct.
I can't tell you what to do. I'm not going to do that.
Well, and just to clarify, yes, our new administrator, who just came on October 7th, she's already talked about that. I know she's had conversations with the road superintendent, you're probably aware of that, of let's start pulling that together, but there's just been such a volume of different projects, but you're exactly right, so we can plan
And
5, 6, 7 years out, including the different kind of infrastructure improvements we're gonna have to make around here.
Because on your maintenance vehicles, you want to replace them periodically. I don't know what your life expectancy is, but let's say your plow truck and the plow, okay? You get 10 years out of that, you're extremely happy.
Yep.
I mean, extremely happy. You're looking usually at 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the kind of thing you need to look at your age of equipment. This is for the permanent that you're talking about, but
We need to get on a rotation schedule.
But even not
Absolutely.
the permanent, but it's just administering the township. This is information we need to know and account for. And it's even stuff like I've talked about before, of radios for the guys. When they're plowing, what they have to do is pull over, on their cell phone, call over. And, so I think that's another improvement.
this is me again.
Gators for the park.
Put
Mr. Kirby?
in your vehicles, okay, like I got an old Ram truck, okay? But if I get on my cell phone, I don't have to use my hands. I mean, I can just hit dial. And that comes in better than those radios, believe it or not. So it's maybe something you need to look at your vehicles and having that ability to have that phone hands-free,
Yeah.
because that is a requirement by
Yes.
law.
Yes.
But it's a lot better communication.
Well, it's one thing I think we need to discuss, and like I said, we haven't had a proper discussion on it. But I do know the challenges of that and the communication and things like that. So, but yeah, and again, gators, a lot of times, it would help the crew when they're just going to the cemetery to do a little cleanup or whatever, instead of bringing the trucks, having the small gators, especially with the new truck, we're going to be plowing paths and that.
Right.
So those are the type of things. Even there's frustration with the speed signs, that when it was ordered, the type was just the solid base, where when we move it, we've got to get the tractor up there. We've got to, instead of, getting that trailer where one man can do it, but those are $5,000-$6,000.
Let's stay on topic though.
That is on topic, that's an expense.
We understand, so let me focus this, that those lists, which I already know that the administrator, who couldn't be here tonight,
Correct.
the administrator is already gathering that information. I know for a fact she's talked to the road superintendent. And if you have additional items, Mr. Evans and Ms. McKee, then we will forward those. I know that we already have a list of projected expenses for the park.
Good.
And we've also put in there a $30,000 per year maintenance. Back to your point, Mr. Evans, if you want to break out those hours, 30 might be high, it might be low. But we've already got that documentation as far as this part. Now the next part, we're premature there because we don't even have the conceptual plan presented to the committee yet. But you're exactly right, and I think that's probably something that has not been as detailed as it should have been, particularly for the road department, which is probably one of our most primary. Another example is this building. It appears there's been a lack of maintenance. We just had a furnace go out. The last time it appeared documented was 2013 that it was serviced, other than filters. So this building, we need to build in, we're going to need to build in some significant monies for maintenance on this building, which has already been discussed ad nauseum what those are, but nothing's proceeded forward.
So, but for the temporary budget, we
Right.
got 50%.
Yep.
And we should be able to knock this out. You guys can do what you want with it next Tuesday.
Yeah, am I correct? Once we get that 50%, and we all come back with, okay, we know the health insurance is going to be more, then that'll be baked into the permanent.
Yes,
Yes.
everything was based into the premise. All that insurance is anything you can dream of, as long as it can be afforded.
Well, and that's the other thing, so hopefully we'll have a better handle on estimated resources with the JEDs and ZEDs.
Mhm.
And hopefully by the end of February, so we don't run it up to the end of March, we put all that more granular detail into that permit. Is that a correct?
Yeah.
I think it's important tonight to kind of talk about what our methodology and plan is going to be going
Right.
forward. And what missing pieces of information, like we've already discussed it, that will get to you far in
And
advance.
this appears to be like kicking the can, because it is a wag at the
Yeah,
first of the year.
right, you just,
Right,
You know, I mean,
Feel
and,
yeah.
but the permanent budget would have to be done by the end of March,
Right.
Yep.
preferably February,
right.
okay? That way you'll have a better outlook on things. And remember, there is no such thing as a permanent budget.
Right.
There is no such animal. You get a grant in June, that's gonna change your budget,
Yeah, and you have to amend it, correct?
right?
Yeah.
And that's been my concern, we're not amending it, but with what Mr. Burkholder indicated is that the lists have been being gathered and, you know, that we should amend to it. Haven't been provided a list or anything, how are we gonna amend to it? We can't just duplicate everything, so again, my frustration is none of this information has been shared. That if there's a list and then we can review it and say, oh, this is missing, we shouldn't have to, each of us list everything all the way, and we can't. The administrator started in October 7th, that a lot of this stuff should have been done and known, and even now with their absence, it's no excuse to handle this basic stuff.
Well,
So-
you have the list for you've dealt with the road crew before, so you have their list of capital improvements that they want, correct? The trucks and everything else?
Quite a while ago, and there's no
Right.
update, and you have been over that, and
No, I
you
haven't.
have not dealt with that.
No, I haven't.
Even
Mr.
with the
Evans,
leaky
Mr.
roof.
Evans, we're not gonna
No.
argue about this.
We have
Back
not.
on the budget, back on the budget. Let's
Right,
stick
we
on the
don't want any
budget.
criticism.
That's all
No,
we
it's
hear
not
from you.
that.
No, but
Go ahead.
my
You
point-
have the
Go ahead.
floor. You have the
Listen,
floor, fiscal
There's
officer.
no arguing about this because
right.
we're paying him
That's
money to be here.
That's
And
right.
if you guys are arguing, we're not getting anything accomplished.
I'm not arguing, I'm trying to keep us on track. So what is the next step? What haven't we addressed yet, so we can stay on time here?
Right now, as far as I'm concerned, I do 50%,
got it.
we get this done, then we really crunch the numbers.
Okay.
Now, my question is, this is what was appropriated. Do we have a list of what's been expended? I mean, do we know what we've gone over on as far as what percentage where we are within the
You're-
expense?
Yeah, it's on your appropriation status report. Again, I don't have mine's on 11/19, because that's when I was up here the first time.
Right.
That's the numbers I use. Your appropriation status, so you're not in any trouble.
Which one do you want?
Let's say I'll call it the general fund, the 1,000. You're at, if I look at this correctly, you've spent so far 35% of your budget.
Right.
Again, you don't want to over budget either.
Right.
You want to have that rainy day fund in case something, like we get a storm like we got in 2012, okay? When you have all those wind shears and tornadoes come through, that way you have the money to do it. Your motor vehicle license, you're at 19%. Your gasoline tax, you're at 33%. Roads and bridges would probably be your biggest expense, I believe. I
Right.
could be wrong. Let's see,
And that's through 3/4?
It's actually through almost, you might say 11 months, 10.5 months.
Okay.
So you're well in good shape and everything. Roads and bridges, I'm trying to find page.
940.
Yeah, and that'll,
Yeah, well, on your roads and bridges, you might say 30%.
yeah, and that'll go up quite a bit when we get those other,
So you're in good shape.
right.
That's not the issue.
Right.
I mean, you're not Latar Township from down around Memphis County where you get
Oh, we-
$97,000 for the year,
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
you know.
And some of that may be because we've had a lot of transition. We had a previous administrator leave, we have we had a gap there, we have a new administrator, so there are probably some capital things back when this was done that we had hoped to execute in 2024 that'll probably get pushed to 2025.
Yeah, and again, it depends, as you said before, all this what's gonna happen starting January 20th to 2025.
Right,
Because you don't know.
right,
It's an unforeseen,
right.
but you still got a plan.
It's good.
So we'll get you the JEDZ, 5 JEDs, 2 JEDZs. We'll get you the updated third quarters on those.
There's, if I'm reading typed up, you've got 4,
Four jets and
5
two-
JEDs and
2 JEDZs.
2 JEDs.
And another question I have is with revenue, TIF revenue. Where, or do we have those projections? Those are start, no, Jackie's shaking her head. Why don't we? Mr. Burkholder?
Don't ask me, Mr. Evans.
You're, Mr. Burkholder, you're in charge of the economic attorney, the point person. You've been over this. You, just like the
No,
roads,
Mr.
you've been
Evans,
asking me.
Mr. Evans,
Why don't you know?
Mr. Evans, Mr. Evans.
It's a legitimate question.
Everything is, the administrator is the point person on everything, Mr. Evans.
Hey.
So you can continue your indictments, but we're gonna stay on the budget.
The
We're gonna work-
administrator
we're
is
going-
incapacitated
I
for most of the
understand-
time, so you are dealing with
I
it, so you
understand that,
cannot push it off.
and we are going to work with the fiscal officer to get whatever information we need to get the temporary passed and the one for, the final for 2025. That's the objective. That's the goal. No, Mr. Evans,
No, but we
enough
don't
is
have the
enough.
information.
So do you know about the fifth? Do you know?
I have been asking for that documentation. Mr. Burkholder was supposed to get it. We even discussed it when he was a candidate, and
We're not going back there.
Hasn't-
We're not
Okay,
going
we're
back
not
there.
going- Do
Has-
you have
We're going
anything on the
forward.
fifth?
You are being asked a question by an elected official. Are
Do
you
you
gonna?
have anything on the fifth?
no, because I've
Okay,
been
then
refused that
that's it.
documentation. I can't even get copies of resolutions. I can't get a copy of bank
whole
statements
resol-
from you.
No, you can't have bank
That's all he
statements.
does.
Why can't I have bank statements? I did a
Because I
public
have to
records
find
request.
out, done. I have to find out if it's a public request from you, or the trustees. If it's a personal request from you, then it has to go through the prosecutor. I
Ms.
called the prosecutor.
Continuo.
So you are
Stop.
refusing to provide
No,
bank
I'm not.
statements to the board.
The
Ms.
board
Conti-
didn't ask for it.
I asked for it.
Ms. Continuo,
Yes,
Trustee McKee and I will work with you. We will figure these things out.
thank
and
you.
We are going to work towards getting all the information. There was not a smooth transition from the board previously to the board prior to me coming on the board. And so there's a lot of cleanup work here, but we're on the right track and we'll get you that information.
Summary? Yeah. Now, one thing we will do,
Right.
all right, besides that, is we will, at the end of the year, we will print up a report of all your vendors.
Okay.
Good.
And how much, no, I'm not talking about payroll, I'm just talking about
Right.
vendors, it's probably about 100 pages. But we will print up each vendor to ensure that the account codes are proper,
Good.
okay? And that's everybody's advantage.
Yep.
We'll see if they're even gonna be used next year or the year after. Maybe we can delete a lot of these miscellaneous codes and clean it up for you.
Good.
Because anything that has a 0 on it, all the way across the board, is useless to all
Yes.
of us.
Right.
You know, fund codes, account codes, revenue codes, appropriation codes, all of it's gonna be cleaned up.
Thank you.
Great.
And now I feel as though we're done with the temporary budget. Okay, so let's talk just 1 minute about year end.
Yes.
It's a process. It's not gonna be an overnight process. It's not gonna be overnight. This thing is gonna take probably 4 to 5 full days to do it properly. Because after you get that done, you do have to send a certified account to the county auditor. It's not your amended certificate, but it's close to it.
Yeah.
Right. So that is something, she'll have to go in and do all the W-2s, W-3s, and they all have to be sent electronically now. You can't print them. So if she does not have a BSO ID, which I guarantee you she doesn't because she's new, and most new people, if you haven't been here last year when you did it, you don't have it. So these are all things that you're going to have patience with her in order for us to get all this stuff done by the end of January.
By when?
By the end of
By the
January.
end of January.
End of
You've
January,
got
okay.
until the end of February.
Yeah,
But we
But
want
we're
to,
not gonna wait that long.
no,
very good.
thank you.
And you'll be guiding us through
Yes, I
and
will.
assisting. Very good.
Yeah, we're gonna get it, we're gonna get it.
Thank you, Chris.
Anything else you need from us, or I think we're,
Not unless you got a couple of truckloads of $100 bills.
Yeah, I printed those last week.
Yeah.
I'll check at the garage and see if we got
It's in the garage.
it's the garage. Which one? This one back here?
Yes.
That's one of the things I want to
Is
see.
there anything else from the board?
No, I'll save it for trustee comments.
He's saving it for trustee comments.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Mr. Kirby. I think we got a good plan moving forward. Is there anything from the public, 2 minutes per person? If so, come to the podium, state your name and address, and direct your comments to the board. Hearing none.
How do I get it? How do I get this?
Gotta go to the Social Security Administration office and do the data.
Our next trustee meeting is going to be Tuesday, December 17th, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. We have a very full agenda to try to get a lot of things done before the end of the year. Ms. McKee, do you have any announcements or comments?
Well, I'm glad we're going to move forward with the temporary budget, but I would like to make sure that we include some recreation to the community, giving back. That we did not get to do the fireworks nor the movie in the park this year. So I would like to see us do like a shredded day, something that we can give back to the community. So I would like to make sure that we have that part of our budget under recreation. When I say recreation, meaning your movie in the park, your fireworks, your shredded day, or whatever we want to add on. So I would like to see that happen for our community.
Okay, let's, would you send just a copy, even though our administrator is available, at least it'll be on the
Yes.
record and she can
Yes.
work with you?
Yes, that'd be great.
Want to pick a date?
Yep.
Do you think most of them agree?
Yep.
I like the idea. Mr. Evans?
Yes, I am utterly shocked that our fiscal officer is purposely withholding
I am
copies of,
not-
hey, this is my time.
No,
No,
Mr. Evans.
no.
Mr.
Purposely
Evans, you-
withholding
Mr. Evans,
Copies of
you
bank
are in
statements from a
violation.
board member. I am not in violation.
You are not.
I have requested it numerous
Mr.
times
Evans.
via email. This is my time. You can comment afterwards.
Sure.
I've requested since June, basic documents, but where are we at? As the traveling fiscal officer said, that budget should be amended. We have not. We have a duty to look at the revenue coming in to make sure, number one, that we're not overpaying ourselves. There's a lot of things that should have been done and should be done that are purposely not. And it's beyond frustrating. That's why I speak up about it. If in any organization somebody wanted a copy of the bank statement, should have been provided without question. For
The
it not to
question
be,
was-
but my concern is when there's untruthfulness in other areas, why is it being withheld? So we have a duty of oversight, and that's being prevented. And I agree with Ms. McKee, we should be having more community events, movie night in the park. I pushed for that before I was even trustee, and nothing. The reason why we're only at 35% of our budget this year is Mr. Burkholder can't get anything through or delays everything. And it's just a few of the things that happen to happen, but to keep saying that, well, the administrator, the this, the that, no excuses. We need to do what's right, what's lawful, but again, to not get information, that's shocking to me and a big concern. And I hope these things with expending this additional money to bring someone in. But Ms. Catuno, I contacted you before you even took your seat of say, hey, there's training. You said, oh, I got it.
I have
The
the
former fiscal officer offered numerous times, and you were
Stop
busy
lying.
on eggs, selling eggs, leaving early.
Selling
It-
eggs,
it
leaving
needs-
early? Come
yes.
on, Mark.
It needs to
She
be
met with
addressed.
me twice. Once one of my employees at the farm got hurt, I had to call the squad. The second time, her daughter got sick, okay? Stop with the lies.
No, it is
I'm
not.
done.
Move to adjourn.
Yep.
Second.
There's proof.
I'm done.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
There's proof. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Burkholder?
Yes,
Ms. McKee?
Yes. We adjourn?
we are adjourned. Dave, did you want these documents? You want these back, right?
We'd like them, but if you
No,
need.
no,
No
no,
reason.
we have the, yeah, but thanks for bringing those up.
No, I gave it.
Too. I still need to, where we just think of it. If there's any others in there too.
Schuster Way. Huntington 310. Refugee Road. No, not a rental door. No. Working on it.
Is that the total?
We got Taylor Road, Taylor.
The general fund, is that the total or the other pages you think? I was gonna ask. Make sure.
Hey, no problem.
It's a lot of rainy day fund.
It's good to see people interested in.
Every time you dedicate a regular.
Well, no, but any part of it is, because if you're interested, it keeps an eye, it keeps people on, you know. Like I said, there's a lot of things that have been done, reimbursements, that it's done, and even this take the rental purchase, it's just like, where's that money going? Why is it, why?
Can you turn off
know?
the recorder,
And a lot of
Mark,
times
please?
they don't, even the,
Mark,
uh,
can you turn off your recorder, please?
what?
Because I'm asking you nicely, please.
I know you don't want anything documented, but.
I don't really care about being